Okay. So we were discussing different kinds of sufferings, where we discussed about the faults of too much ups and downs, then the fault of having no friends, fault of having no friends. In the Dharma text, it says, ordinary people suffer from having no friends. Which means that normally you may be looking for a person with such and such feature and such quality as your friend, but it is hard to gain. Then, of course, when you die, there's no friend. Nobody can come with you.
Think about loneliness.
No loneliness, just friend. So this is a general problem of those of us who are in samsara. Then there are individual problems, like if you are born in negative state of existence, like an animal. I explained this to you. Did I explain? No. When I don't have to go into detail, but the sufferings in the hell realm, sufferings in the realm of hungry ghost, sufferings of animals. So many things are explained there, but of sufferings of animals, let us say. The other two, for the time being, you may not be able to digest it. So, for example, animals are something that we normally and regularly see. So, in the case of the general sufferings of the animals, I explained this actually.
Yes.
I explained this. Okay, I explained this. So we were talking about, that's why we were talking about the sufferings of human beings. Okay. Now, in the case of sufferings of human beings, or in the case of sufferings of beings in the happy existence, then again there are sufferings of human beings, sufferings of demigods, sufferings of beings born in the goddess realm, and so forth. In the case of human beings, suffering of birth, suffering of birth. Is there suffering in birth?
Yes.
Huh?
Both sides.
Huh?
Both sides.
Both sides.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Therefore, Buddha said, suffering birthday, not happy birthday. Ordinarily we say happy birthday, but Buddha said suffering birthday. Suffering. But I'm not saying that you should not celebrate birthday, which is for a different purpose. But with the understanding that birth itself is not only suffering, but it produces all other sufferings that will come later on.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are born, therefore you age, therefore you become sick, therefore you finally die. So the very cause, the birth itself is responsible for all other things. So normally, ordinarily, we welcome birth, but don't welcome sickness, aging, and death. But actually, birth itself is the main factor, the causes for the other problems. Then aging. Aging. Aging starts right after the second moment of the birth. Immediately after the birth, aging starts. It's not that you start aging only after 60, that's 70. That's what we ordinarily understand. But it starts right from the second moment, moving towards death. Yene, kechi samshi dewana never. Chida shinje tumdo pangzilji yubu. Songo sere, chive lam jela chedu. Nyechen sonsar tibe nongsu di jowa. You know Tibetan so? Yene, kechi samshi dewana never. Right from the moment of the birth, you do not have control to stay without moving even for a moment. And you are running with the highest speed to the Lord of the death. So even though we call that I'm alive, but you are on the national highway to death. Just as you speed a car towards your home or destination, Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, similarly, day and night we are on the national highway, moving closer and closer towards death. Alas, alas, how sad this way of the criminal led to the place of execution. This is, I think, written by the 7th Dalai Lama. He's a great poet, great practitioner. Very moving poems that he has written, very moving. So this is one from his prayer. So that's the way. So that naturally reminds us to be careful. There is a need for an urgent solution for this kind of problems. The only thing with the aging is that it comes slowly and unnoticingly. The only good thing. It comes so slowly and unnoticingly, definitely unnoticingly. Slowly in the sense, not in the sense that things are not moving at a great speed. If scientifically, if you look at how things are changing, they say that within a certain very short limited period, the whole system goes a complete change. Unbelievable, you see. But at least if you compare your picture of today to the picture when you were 2-year-old baby, you can of course see this is a totally different person. That much we can know. But the subtle changes, this grosser level of change takes place because there is a subtle level of change taking place all the time. And this subtle level of change is functioning so quickly, because whatever is there in the body, it goes a complete change within a very short time. Scientifically, no, they say. So therefore, just like the environmental degradation, it comes slowly and unnoticingly, slowly at least to our perspective. To the perspective of an enlightened being, I don't think it's slowly. But to our perspective, we think, oh, I am the same person. This was last year. And on these very gross levels, sometimes we see drastic change, sometimes we don't see change easily. So even when you meet your friend after 5 years, oh, you did not change a bit. You know, people say things like that. But it's not that it's not changing, it's changing all the time. So the only good thing is that the change, at least to our perspective, is going slowly and unnoticingly. Like the environmental degradation, I said. Because in the case of the environmental degradation and pollution of water, everybody thinks, what does it matter if I cut one tree? There are millions of trees in the world. Another fellow thinks in the same way. So unnoticingly, you are destroying it and polluting it. And gradually, you do so much pollution and environmental degradation. Now the water is not fit for drinking. In the past, water means drinkable from anywhere. In Tibet, for example, it was the case. If there is a water, you can drink. In the forest, in the mountains, wherever it's water, it's a drinkable water, so pure. But now today, I asked this question in a five-star hotel in America. The person who was serving, I asked him, can I drink the water from the tap? He said, yeah, you can, but not so sure, you see. And now most of the time we drink from bottled water, which means we have started buying water. Still call ourselves intelligent human beings. You see? Still call ourselves intelligent human beings. Not being able to provide the basic necessity, pure water, pure air, clean earth and ground or environment. These are the basic needs. We are not able to provide it. And we have now started buying water. Imagine. Very soon, we will buy bottled oxygen. Bottled oxygen. Believe me. We end up buying water. One, because we polluted. All of us participated in polluting the water, river, and so forth. And especially the business people. Just with their greed to earn money, because they have the power, they have the money, they have the backing by the government. So they start all kinds of factories, industries, doing a major pollution of the water environment and so forth. Second, we are all, number one, not so intelligent and not so strong, not so decisive. Meaning that if there's something, as I said this morning, if there's something there to be sold in the market, we buy without much questioning. On one hand, we say, I really don't have much money. I don't earn money, And we, even in terms of your food, you are very frugal. But on the other hand, you spend so much money. You see? So I think that this is not something that should be taken lightly. Buying water. We can come up with a demonstration saying that we are not asking big things to the government or whoever. We are not asking big things, but we are asking for clean drinking water freely available everywhere. And we refuse to buy the bottled water. Very simple thing. Otherwise, as I told you, very soon they will sell bottled oxygen and you will buy it. Because there may be some element of truth, but also they are so clever in advertising that now the air is completely polluted. So the oxygen, is bad quality. So buy this bottled oxygen. You will buy it. So therefore, like if we have this capacity to judge for ourselves, and this is what is being taught in Buddhism, you go to the market for shopping. The first thing that you will find is the beautiful package, whether it's a juice, fruit juice, it's a biscuit, whatever. The package is really nice, beautiful. Because we always go after appearance. We are mesmerized by appearance. Wow, so beautiful. Wow, so handsome. We go after the external beauty. We get mesmerized, you see. So they know this. They know this. Of course, they will say, oh, the look has to be nice. Why the look has to be nice? Because people go after appearance. To such an extent, then many of them will not worry about the content inside. They worry about the wrapping, the external wrapping, how beautiful it is. And we will definitely buy if the wrapping is nice. A fruit juice, they may be lying in a shop, 1 year old. It's possible. I have seen this, for example, in India. Other places also. Because I live in India, I'm just saying that. So this thing comes from one place to another place, from one shop to another shop, you see. So it stays, for example, in this shop for a long time, getting old. Then goes to another shop, stays there a long time. But it will not smell bad in most of the cases because they put some preservatives and chemicals. So this does not necessarily mean it's good for your health. You see. And in more hot climate conditions, people have, found that the juice they bought when they start drinking is full of, animals. You see? But we'll go for it because we go after appearances. Marriage takes place after appearances. Shopping takes place after appearances. So what these Buddhist teachings are saying is appearances are deceptive. Appearances are deceptive. So take time to find the reality. Take time to find the reality, not just go after appearance. So even in terms of your shopping, you can really do some scrutiny, analysis, and stop buying many things which are not important, which you can easily make in your home. You see? Like, for example, how much we eat in the restaurant, and how much it costs. The same thing, and in fact, much better quality you can eat in your home, in your own home. You can invite friends to your home. So many things can be done in terms of saving money, in terms of protecting your health, in terms of stopping this culture of selling everything. They'll sell everything so long as there is buyer, and we are the buyers. So just as the sellers, business people have a responsibility, similarly, we also have the responsibility. So this we can learn. So the only good thing with aging is I compared it to environmental degradation. But if it does not come slowly and unnoticingly, but if there is onslaught, sudden attack of aging, one go, like for example, a young man of 20 years old goes to bed, and then the aging starts attacking. Next morning, he's an old man with white hair and wrinkled faces. He will die of heart attack. He will die of shock and heart attack. So that's why we say the only good thing is it comes slowly and unnoticingly. Okay? Then suffering of sickness. Suffering of sickness. We all have that experience, one or the other kind of sicknesses. So I don't need to elaborate on this. The only thing I would like to say is, even in the case of illnesses and sicknesses, much is again our own doing, because our sense of health is not good, because we are not, we don't control our diet, what we should eat and what we should not eat. And mentally also there is a tension, there is a depression, there is feeling of loneliness. You can't digest this food unless your mind also engages in enjoying it. It's not only the tongue which enjoys the food. How tasty the food is very much dependent upon whether your mind is there or not. When your mind is there, your mind is happy, and then whatever you do, you enjoy. The mind is not there, you cannot enjoy. So you will be simply just putting things in your mouth, but you're not really properly eating it. Okay. For example, when you eat, if you don't take it for granted, but instead if you think that I'm very lucky that I'm able to get this kind of food. How many people are there in the world today who are starving, who are dying for even one spoon of food? In this very world, there are thousands of people who are starving. And those of us who have access to food, we take it for granted. On the one hand, we also say we don't have enough money, but when you eat, the way you eat, everywhere. You eat a little bit, and then you don't like, oh, I don't like, you just throw it like that. See? These are not good practices. How can you waste food? Even if you consider for your own purpose, having given so much money, how can you waste like that? So there is a culture where you just eat half and throw half. If you're not so sure about the food, then first you put a little, then you like it, you can go for again, But how many of us, even we act like small kids, not like grown-up people. So wasting food. If you go in the aeroplanes, how much food is wasted? You see. And all this wastage comes under having paid a big price. It doesn't come freely, it doesn't come like that, you see. So sickness or illness is also very much dependent upon your soundness of the mind, how you are living your life. People don't sleep in the night, sleep in the day into this world. It's cause of sickness, one cause of sickness, you see. Night means for sleeping. Whether God has made it or nature has made it, night means for sleeping. If you have a really restful night, next day will be a really nice day. Your mind will be clear, you will be able to do so many things. But we have this habit in the modern world that you go very late for sleeping. You stay awake like an owl, hooting around. And then next morning when it's time to do work, you are not so wide awake. You see? So you do everything, not so clear mind. So therefore you get all these kind of problems. Then also sometimes eating too much. Sometimes eating too little. Now timing also not there. Because the body also needs to take rest. You cannot play with your body, you see. So there should be moderation in food. Moderation in food. If you read the great stages of the path, it talks about 9 causes for death. And out of these 9 causes for death, one is eating too much. One is eating too little. You see, some of us eat too much. We suffer now. Today we suffer from many people suffering from obesity. Not just obesity, but also many other illnesses. Then there are many who are suffering from anorexia, eating too little. Eating too little. So worried about one's figure that you eat less, and then almost like starve yourself. I'm thinkable, crazy human mind. So therefore, it is in your hand to a great extent. Then suffering of death. Of course, this is something that everybody knows, suffering of death. And the suffering of death is also there because we have this strong clinging, strong grasping to the life, strong clinging to this life, strong clinging to this body. So you don't want to lose this body. Therefore, you fear death. But if you have someone who has very good understanding of the fact that there is no death to the mind, and especially if you had prepared your mind or conditioned your mind with all the positive practices, then you will not fear death. Death is like changing clothes. You don't get fear when you change clothes. Similarly, when you die, what you leave behind is your old body, and what you take is a new body, fresh body. So there is not much need to have fear. But when we don't understand that, there is a lot of fear when the mind dissolution of the mind takes place. And then there is the suffering of getting separated from your beloved friends and relatives. With beloved friends and relatives, you always want to stay together. Always expecting that they never be separated. You see? Because again, strong attachment, short-sightedness, not knowing that what comes together is for separation. Because you don't know that, therefore you always made a plan to stay together. So therefore, when there's a separation, you suffer terribly. And then the suffering of encountering those that you do not like. The first suffering of separating from what you like, basically means whether it's your friend, you want to stay with your very good friend, but you are unable to stay, they get separated, you suffer. You want to get a nice job, but you are not getting it, you lose their job. So those things that you want, it's difficult for you to meet them. Those things you do not want, you always meet them. The person you dislike seems to be standing there in the corner, always waiting for you. You see? So we have that suffering. And things that we search, we don't get it. There is suffering. So in short, as I explained earlier, we are afflicted. You need to know how we are afflicted by the three types of suffering. Suffering of change, and conditioned suffering. Now out of this, I explained a little bit suffering of change. And I also explained that you have these two sufferings because of the conditioned suffering. Because something is fundamentally flawed, something is fundamentally wrong. The physical aggregate itself, its nature is such that you are prone to such problems. Because if the body is this body is different. If it is made of iron or diamond or stone, then it will be much stronger. But it's made of flesh, bones, things like that. So therefore, we are naturally prone to suffering, susceptible to suffering. So, so therefore, the main purpose of the Buddhist practice is to achieve liberation, nirvana. That means liberation from the bondage of this psychophysical existence. So that's not an easy task. The liberation from the bondage, the imprisonment of this psychophysical aggregate. If you look at the nature of this very body, it's because of this very nature of this very body that we are not able to do many things that we want. If you want to do some meditation, you get back pain, knee pain, so many problems. It's also interesting to see that when it comes to doing something not so virtuous or bad things, you do the whole day, you don't normally get tired, You have some kind of fun there, you see. But when it comes to doing something good, even when you're required to sit comfortably on a comfortable cushion, but still you're getting a lot of problems. You're getting problem here, getting problem there, getting problem here. So that's the nature of our psychophysical aggregate. So therefore now we need to achieve that state of nirvana, which is a permanent state of happiness, from where there is no falling back. So that state of nirvana is not a different place where you go and relax. But then nirvana means the state of your mind, where you have completely eradicated, completely eliminated all the afflictive emotions with their seeds, all the afflictive emotions and the seeds of these afflictive emotions. That state of the mind is called state of complete cessation of afflictive emotions. Now this you can find for yourself at least a little bit. Of course, it's very difficult for us to say that such a liberation is possible. Not easy for us to understand. It seems really, really extremely difficult. We can know is that we can reduce our anger a little bit. That we can know. We can reduce our jealousy a little bit. So this itself is a good news. This knowledge that you are able to reduce your afflictive emotions a little bit shows that if you make more attempt, then you can reduce more, and then you will reach a state where you will be without these problems, these difficulties. But it will not come easily. You have to really make effort, because there is a complete overhaul. Just like when the machines doesn't function properly, even after a little bit of repair here and there, if it is not functioning properly, then you have to invite a really good mechanic and request him, now this machine we repaired so many times, it's not working, can you please do a complete overhaul? So like that, you need to do a complete overhaul. Functioning, and then clean it, purify it, and correct it. So that will definitely need effort, practice, sustained practice. Then you can change it, and that you can only do. Nobody else can do it for you. It's not like the construction of a house. It's not like an external construction like a house. In the case of construction of house, if I plan to construct a 3-story building, I construct the first floor, then I'm busy. I had to go to Israel. Then I ask my staffs in the library. In fact, we are doing something like that right now in the library. So then I ask my staffs, I'm busy, I'm going, please look after the construction of the second floor or whatever. They'll say, okay, I'll do it. But in terms of your spiritual development, you cannot say that I've been practicing on compassion for the last 3 months. I made this much progress. Now I'm busy, I'm going to Israel. So please continue after me. For me, you can't do this. Only you have to do that. Therefore, the Buddha said, I have shown the path of Nirvana to you. Nirvana is up to you. And elsewhere he said, I am your teacher, you have to do the work. I am a teacher, I can give you homework for your benefit, for passing the exam. But if you don't do the exam, the homework, you will not pass, you will fail. Exactly like that. So therefore, now the next point that we really need to think is to find out about this path that leads to liberation. And in this case, what we really need to think about is how one gets entrapped, or by what process one gets entrapped, or what are the sources of our existence in the samsara. What are the sources? In other words, what are the causes and conditions for our being entrapped in the samsara? So now here you need to think about the afflictive emotions, and the contaminated actions as the causes for our engagement in the samsara. Now, with regard to this notion that you are in this cycle of existence or in the samsara because of afflictive emotions, because of certain causes and conditions, there are philosophers at the time of the Buddha who spoke to the Buddha, had discussion with the Buddha, and who said, for these things that we see and experience, there is no cause, there is no condition. They are by nature. They are the way things are. There is no particular cause and condition. For example, you have seen the rising of the sun. It's nature. There's no particular cause and condition for the rising of the sun. You've seen the water falling down, going down. It's nature. There's no cause and no condition for it. The peas, the peas are round. The vegetable that we eat, they're round. Nobody has made it a ball. Nobody was working to make it a ball or round. It's the way nature is. You've seen the thorns, sharp thorns. These thorns are not sharpened by somebody. It is the way it is. It is just nature. So there were philosophers at the time who shared this idea with the Buddha, saying that you are talking so much about cause and condition, but look at this, all these things. And look at, for example, the beautiful feather of a peacock. Who painted this? Nobody painted this. Similarly, the multicolored flowers that you see, nobody painted this. This is the way things are. This is the law of nature. So there were a lot of different proponents or propounders who came with this idea when they explored the way things are. And not only that, they tried to argue with the Buddha by saying that you are saying that all these things arose from the afflictive emotions. The psychophysical aggregate is the product of afflictive emotions. If that is the case, then tell me which one came before. The body came before, afflictive emotions came before. They dared Buddha, they asked these questions to the Buddha. If you say afflictive emotions came first, then where is the body? Where is the body where the afflictive emotions will exist? If you say the body came first, then you're contradicting your statement where you said the body came because of the afflictive emotions. And you can also say that they came together, because if they came together, they cannot be the cause. So therefore, I would say that everything is just law of nature, not from cause and condition. And further on, this is Gautama, which means Buddha. You should listen. You see, earth is solid. The nature of the earth is solidity. The nature of water is liquidity. The nature of fire is being hot. The nature of the wind is mobility or motility. And the space is being free from obstruction. So they are just the way things are. They do not come from any causes and conditions. So they posed many questions like this to the Buddha. So we do not have time to try to read all of this. Some of these are quite interesting. Then the Buddha answered this by saying, if it is just by law of nature, then why, if something is red, not everything is red? Why some are yellow? Flowers also, in the case of flowers, why some are yellow? Why some are red? Why some flowers have thorns? Why others don't? If it's by nature, then one is permanent, others should also be permanent. One is impermanent, everything should be impermanent, because you don't need any cause and condition. How would you explain that? How would you explain the differences? Similarly, we give terms like this is a aeroplane, this is a car, and things like that, depending upon how it is made, the causes and conditions by which it is made. So depending upon that, we give different names. So they are dependent on the names, they are dependent on the causes and conditions. And then, even in the worldly condition, we make three distinctions: the action, the actor, and the act. You see? If it is just by nature, then why would we make this three distinctions? That this is the action, this is the doer of the action, this is the deed. So you are contradicting even the worldly conventions. And then with regard to your question whether the afflicted emotions came first or the body came first, the Buddha answered that they are at the same time. Both are there at the same time. But still, it is because of the causes of afflicted emotions that the body comes into existence, not the other way around. And then, for example, then he tries to refute this question by the Buddha, answered by the Buddha by saying that, look at these two eyes. Two eyes. He answers the Buddha by saying, look at these two eyes. They are there at the same time, but they are not dependent upon each other. The right eye is not dependent on the left eye is not dependent on the right. Similarly, the body and afflicted emotions, they are together, but they are not dependent on each other. So to this, the Buddha answers by saying Even in the case of the eye, the eye is able to see something. When on the one hand there is butter lamp, or where there is the light. Even if the eye is there, but if there's no light, you will not be able to see it. So clearly showing that what the eye sees is also very much dependent on its causes and conditions. So what I'm explaining is just to give an idea how people explain these things. And there are a second group of thinkers who would say what we are experiencing today is a result of past karma. Past karma. Whatever we are experiencing today is due to past karma. So if you work hard to purify the result of that past karma, then you will be happy. You will be in peace. So that was one way of thinking. Now this is important for all of us to reflect. Because the other time when I was giving this talk in Divi Shalom, the topic was karma or fate. Is there fate or choice? Karma, fate or choice? That was the topic they wanted me to talk to. So this is important. Now, if whatever we are experiencing today is dependent only on the past life's karma, then we are dependent on fate. Because the past karma you've done and it's gone and there's nothing you can do now. So to this, the Buddha answered by saying, when we talk about karma, it is not only the past life's karma. It's today's karma. This life's karma. Today's karma. So there may be certain things that you've done in the past, but because of today's action, today's karma, you can change it. And particularly, whether any action becomes positive or negative is very much dependent on, as you know, is on motivation of the doer. You know that very well, the motivation of the doer. Motivation means choice. Motivation means choice. Motivation. Motivation means willing to do something, positive or negative. So that means choice. If you get a positive motivation, do something, you will get good result. If you cultivate a bad motivation, do something, you will get bad result. So intention is a very important thing in the Buddhist teaching. That much how pure your karma is very much dependent on your motivation and your intention. So that means choice. You make the choice. But most of the time we choose, but we choose badly. Because our choice is very much influenced by negative emotions, all die-hard habits, and so many things. Misconceptions, and so many things. So therefore, even though we are choosing, but we are choosing badly. We are not able to choose properly. It does not mean to say that you have no choice, but it means you are not able to choose properly. So therefore, to be able to choose properly, not only you should have a good motivation, but you should also deal with other emotions, purify many of these negative emotions, cultivate many of these positive emotions, develop a more holistic attitude. And through that way, you will be able to not only choose, but choose properly. See? So therefore, again, Dharma practice means choosing things properly. The choice is yours, what you want to choose. So in order to choose properly, you need to have some knowledge, what to choose, what not to choose. So knowledge is important. There should be many options. To choose means there should be many things available from among which you should choose. So what are you going to choose now? Short-term happiness, long-term happiness. Choose just for your benefit or the benefit of everybody. So there are so many choices. So which of these choices is good? This is explained in the Buddhist teaching and particularly in the Mahayana teaching. That you should choose, as we say in ordinary life, choosing the career. See, and if you read this Tsongkhapa's text, where he explains how did he did the Buddhist studies, the Sutric and Tantric studies, how did he do the Sutric and Tantric studies? And after explaining all this, he says that in this way I made my career, satisfactorily fulfilled. Because he had chosen a way of practice which was all wonderful good. He made effort day and night doing these good things. And therefore he says, I'm lucky. I chose the right path, did the right practice. That's the thing. So we should also likewise live our life in such a way so there is nothing to regret, nothing to feel sad later on. Now, as a practitioner, it's also important to realize the fact there are many things that you may not be able to know right now. But always having this wish to do good. And even if you're not able to see some of the consequences right now, continuously going in that line. For example, recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, it will collect merit. How do you know that it will collect merit? Recite Heart Sutra, it will collect merit. How will you collect merit? Yeah.
The Buddha says.
Exactly. One, the Buddha says, that's also a good way. But another way is, the best way is that you should understand the meaning of what you're reciting. Om Mani Padme Hum, Heart Sutra, whatever you're reciting, you should know the meaning. Then recite, that it will leave an impact on your mind. But even otherwise, so that's the best way of practice. But even if you don't know the meaning, but at least you know that this is not harming anybody right now. And at least it is giving you a good feeling. Instead of like gossiping and saying all the nonsense, creating, division among people. You just sit alone and recite these mantras, it gives you a good energy, good feeling, you see. So some of these activities, the fruits of some of these activities, we may not know right now. But you kind of stubbornly, continue to do those practices, you will collect merit. It will hit its impact or vibration, whatever you want to call it. So that kind of thinking is also important. Now, with regard to the afflictive emotions, you need to know how these afflictive emotions arise, how these afflictive emotions are responsible for accumulating karma, how due to these afflictive emotions and karma that you die and conceive in the womb of mother, and so forth. So first of all, it is important to identify these afflictive emotions. Anger, jealousy, hatred, negative competitiveness, and so forth. These are called afflictive emotions. The definition of an afflictive emotion is that as soon as these emotions arise, it will bring affliction. They will create unsettledness of the mind, unsettledness, turbulence in the mind, unsettledness, unsettled, not settled, turbulence in the mind. The peace will be destroyed. As soon as the afflictive emotions arise, your peace of mind will be disturbed, directly or indirectly. For example, when anger arises in your mind, it immediately disturbs the tranquility and peace of your mind. You will get agitated. Your mind become turbulent. You become restless, unsettled, as I said. Restless. Your body will start shivering. You're entering into a trance. You're almost entering into a trance. You know that. When you develop attachment, it may not be so violently or strongly turbulent as anger arises, but it will create instability in your mind. Instability. Attachment, for example, and other negative emotions. So the thing that you need to know, for example, in the case of attachment, let us say I'm very attached to this tomatoes over there. Before I have the attachment, I'm sitting like this, stable. But when I develop this attachment to the tomato, see, it's already not stable, you see. And when I have a strong attachment to the microphone, I will hold on to it. When I hold on to it, is my hand free? See, you wanted freedom. But when you grasp onto something, hold on to something with attachment, you hang on to it. Your freedom is then lost. Your freedom is lost. So the afflictive emotions make you turbulent, unsettled, and your whole thinking narrow. Your whole thinking will become narrow with these afflictive emotions. It's another very important point. For example, when anger arises, your focus becomes narrow. When anger arises, you need to get angry with one object. Isn't that true? You want to get angry with one object. And you want to say that this man is responsible. This woman is responsible. You want to find one target to shoot because the mind is narrow. You are not able to see that the problem came not only from this person alone, but you also played a part. Many other causes and conditions played a part. You're not able to reflect on this. You will point to only one factor. This person. See, you can see. When you develop compassion towards all sentient beings. See the difference. See the difference. When you develop compassion, how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. It goes to everybody. It's open-minded. It's universal. When you develop anger, it's very difficult to get angry with all sentient beings. Very difficult. For example, like Like maybe at the maximum you say, I am very upset and angry with all human beings. But why with the birds? Why with the cows? You see? You may be unhappy about these things, but so they are very, these negative emotions are very narrow-minded. Like ordinary love, for example, not loving kindness. Loving kindness towards all human beings. Ordinary love, my husband. Only this person I love. I live only for this person.
This is attachment.
Of course. Of course. You can clearly see how narrow it is. Loving kindness is developed by not getting stuck with that object or with that person to whom you develop that loving kindness. You develop that loving kindness in a detached manner. You don't get pulled into that. You don't get sucked into that object. Ordinary attachment, when you develop ordinary attachment, you get pulled towards that object. You get sucked by that object. You are yoked together with that object. So when you are sucked into that object, pulled into that object, get stuck in that object, how can you? So you can clearly see that the freedom is restricted, deprived. But when you develop loving kindness and compassion, you have very strong concern towards that person, their well-being, but you won't get stuck there. For example, when somebody does something wrong or somebody dies in a family and we go there, say to the funeral, whatever, then the family members are crying, weeping and so forth. Then you also get sucked into that. When you go such a place where there's some very bad things are happening, when you go there, mostly we all get sucked into it. The other person is crying, you will also start crying. When the other person is lamenting, you will also start lamenting. But the Buddhist teaching, they say, no. They are crying. They're in a helpless situation. But if you also enter into a helpless situation, how can you help? But you go there, don't start into that situation. You go there, you observe what is happening properly, and you maintain your calmness of mind. Perfectly understanding the situation. As I said this morning, these things happen. These things happen. But the other person is not able to see at that point and accept that these things happen. They're lamenting, they're in darkness. But you should be able to say, these things happen. Understand and help in the best possible way. So therefore, afflictive emotions, they make your mind narrow. And much of the conflict that we see today in the world is due to narrow-mindedness, that my religion is best, the others are wrong, my country is best, other countries are not so good. I mean, every country now, they put a lot of restriction on the visa, Don't come to my country. Only if you have a lot of money, come, otherwise, no. But that's what visa is about, more or less.
Yes.
More or less. When you develop narrow-mindedness, not only there will be conflict with other people, but your health will be also poorer. Your thinking will also be poorer. For example, much of the suffering, as I said earlier, is because of narrow-mindedness. You have only this tunnel vision. Tunnel vision. where you think mainly only about yourself, not about others, because of negative emotions. So within this small tunnel vision, even if there is a small minor problem in your case, you will tend to see it as unsurmountable. Unsurmountable. Something that's difficult to deal with. You will see it. Of all people, how come that I have so much suffering? It's not that you are alone suffering, you see, but you've made it a point to focus only on your suffering, so therefore you see it big. There are many people who are suffering 100 times more than you. Had you opened your mind a little bit, not just getting bogged down with your suffering, if you thought a little bit about how other people are suffering, having no food, no clothing, no friend, no medical treatment, you see. So therefore, the practices like wisdom and compassion tells you to be open-minded, to see the reality in wider perspective. Yes, you get sufferings, but at the same time, you should think about the sufferings of many other people. They'll make you a huge difference. It's not just me. And comparing to these people, I'm much more fortunate. These people are not physically suffering, but also they don't have medical treatment. These people are not physically suffering, but they're caught between crossfiring. These people are not suffering, not only suffering, but they have no home, like now what we see in Nepal and many African countries, you see. Totally helpless. So comparing to that, like for example, here, if you are sick, you are free to go to different medical treatments. There are friends who are ready to help you. You are not experiencing any natural disaster right now. So when you compare, you feel happy. And when your mind changes its way of thinking, your body heals quicker, much quicker. So that's why it is important to realize the fact that this your thinking makes such a huge difference. You can make your life happier and more peaceful just by thinking and understanding the reality. This is important to understand properly. Otherwise, many people think, oh, why people go to these Buddhist teachings and talks? Why you go and waste your time? Instead that you just relax in your home, do some washing and eat nice food, go for a walk or picnic, whatever, earn money. That's what it matters. Many people think like that. So it is important to tell them, or we should ourselves understand how it is helping you. How it is helping you. So for that, let me give you another example. How your thinking makes difference. Let us say two people are suffering from same migraine headache with same intensity. As far as the physical suffering, the migraine headache is concerned, they're suffering from same migraine headache with same intensity. But how they will experience their suffering very much dependent upon their mental attitude. One, let us say, who has a positive mental attitude, when he gets that migraine headache, he will first of all ask the question, why am I getting this migraine headache? Because headache is normally due to many reasons. It's not necessarily in the head, it is due to many other physical problems. So am I getting this migraine headache because I did not get enough sleep last night? Or because I drank too much? Or alcohol too much? Or I took wrong food? Is it food poisoning? So he will ask all these questions. Then if there's a need to sleep, take rest, he will take rest and sleep. There's need to take medicine, he will take medicine. So he will do whatever he will do. And then when his friends come to see him, he is having that migraine really terribly, bad migraine headache. But still he will try to remain cheerful and talk to the friends. So they will also help him. Then if he is a Buddhist practitioner, he will say that according to the Buddha's teaching, these experiences are good for purification. So some of my wrongdoings in the past, I'm sure now it is purified. And also I should not just feel too sad because this is just a headache, but how many people are there who are suffering much more than me? If he is a Christian, he might say, oh, this is God's creation, there must be a meaning. So in this way, he will maintain his positive mental attitude and do all the necessary things to cure his headache. So therefore, he will be much better. You see now how it helps you. The other person, let us say, who is a negative, he gets angry. Why of all people I get this migraine headache? If he is a believer in Christianity, he would say, God is not fair. Why he gave this headache to me? If he is a believer in Buddha, he might say, I don't think Buddha is compassionate. If he is compassionate, why I'm suffering from this compassion and why he's from headache and why he's not helping me? If his friends comes to see him, try to talk to him, he would say, I am dying from this migraine headache and you're, creating nuisance here. Yeah, you're just happy. If they ask him to eat food, how can I eat food? I'm dying from this migraine headache. So he'll refuse to take treatment, refuse to eat food. So that now scientifically it is found that that kind of mental attitude slows down your healing capacity to recover. And it worsens the situation, you see. So as simple as that. So don't think that these mental exercises are not directly useful. They're very, very useful. Very, very useful. Okay? So therefore, as I said earlier, negative emotion makes your mind narrow. And when your mind becomes narrow, then I said, the consequences that you suffer. And people who, it is now scientifically found that people who make a lot of self-references all the time, not about other people's well-being, who talks about I, me, and mine all the time, these people suffer easily from many kind of illnesses, including heart attack. These people are more prone to sicknesses, including heart attack, because your focus is very small. You worry about yourself. When you worry too much about yourself, then tension comes there, depression comes there. You see. Second, these negative emotions, they don't have a solid foundation, a foundation which is reasonable. Like, for example, if you get angry, if somebody asks you, so why do you get angry? Or if you develop an attachment, why would you get attachment to this person, that person? You may come up with certain reasonings, but the reasonings will not have a correct foundation, valid foundation, solid foundation. But in the case of development of positive emotions like wisdom, understanding, emptiness, compassion, loving kindness, they have a solid foundation. Like, for example, in the case of development of compassion, there is a solid foundation. Why should you develop compassion? I should develop compassion because other people are like me, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Things like that. There is a very valid foundation why you should develop these positive qualities, and which will not be there in the development of these negative emotions. So they do not go well with the reason, with logic. So therefore, these negative emotions are destructive. And then, as I said earlier, in terms of your own personal experience also, you already have some idea how good these negative emotions are. So now, as I said yesterday, you should really do some experiment with anger, as I said, and similarly with attachment. How much you are getting from attachment. Write down what long-term benefit and happiness you got from attachment, from obsession. Write down. Okay. And similarly, he talks about he talks about many other negative emotions. And whoever practices and develops these negative emotions, they will be controlled by the Lord of Death. You will lose your independence and you will be controlled by the Lord of Death. For example, like having no faith or being lazy in terms of doing the spiritual practice, or having forgetfulness, having your mind distracted, having your wisdom corrupted, mentally improperly engaging in objects, having faith and trust in wrong objects, mental excitement, ignorance, carelessness, and so forth. Carelessness. And similarly, they are like anger, resentment, deceitfulness, cunningness, jealousy, stinginess, arrogance, so forth. There are many negative emotions. So you should distance yourself from all these negative emotions. But all these negative emotions primarily arise from ignorance. So that's the most important thing that you need to know. They arise from ignorance. Now here ignorance is not just lack of knowledge, but ignorance means lack of knowledge plus misconception of reality. Misconception of reality. The nature of reality is that it has dependent existence, as I explained this morning. Now, the nature of the reality is that it has a dependent existence, but when you start thinking that this have independent existence, so that conception is the misconception of the reality. So that misconception of the reality is called ignorance. And because of this ignorance, this misconception of the reality where you see things as having independent existence, you develop anger, you develop hatred, you develop jealousy, you develop attachment, and so forth. All other negative emotions arise from that. Even in ordinary life, we go to school, we go to colleges. Why do we go to school? Why do we go to college and universities?
To get knowledge.
To remove some ignorance. To get knowledge means to remove ignorance. Yeah, you are correct. To get knowledge means to remove ignorance. Now, the interesting thing is, in the Buddhist teaching, the root cause of all the problem is ignorance. And therefore, you must develop wisdom, that means knowledge of the reality, remove ignorance. That's one of the fundamental Buddhist philosophy and teaching. Similarly, the scientist is also interestingly, if you look at this word, science, it came from the Latin word scientia, scientia, which also means knowledge, which also means knowledge. So the science is also saying that much of the physical sufferings that you are encountering is because of lack of knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge how to make air condition, you will have to suffer in the heat. You will have to suffer in the cold. When you gain the knowledge, then you can install an air condition and enjoy the coolness even in the peak of summer. So knowledge is important. It's so amazing to read the history of how science developed. When science was just coming and not developed, when some of the great thinkers, when they tried to bring about this changes in the mode of thinking and discovering things, they were very strongly objected by the religious people. For example, when medicine was not there, when science was not there, still people used to get sick, of course. So how they were treated? Either they were no treatment, dying like animals and dogs. The birds, they also don't have a hospital, so I'm sure we are also like that. And because we have more intelligence, so we try different ways. One way, so interesting, of treating sick people was if somebody is very sick, then they would say that this person is haunted by evil spirit. So we need to beat this person so that the spirit will leave the body. And in certain cases, when the sickness is very severe and strong, just by beating, of course, that person will not get healed. It will make the matter worse. So there are stories where the person was beaten to death, hoping that the spirit will go when there is no spirit haunting that person.
His own spirit.
Yeah, exactly. His own spirit came and died. You see. So see, that is the thing, due to lack of knowledge. Then gradually with knowledge, we came up with all the medicine and things like that. Many of these diseases were, cured. So knowledge. But then the difference between Buddhism and science is focusing on alleviating the physical related problems and sufferings. And Buddhism is related to alleviating the sufferings of the mind, the mentally created sufferings and problems. But the idea that in order to remove the suffering, there must be knowledge. There's a lot of similarity there. So therefore, ignorance, due to lack of knowledge, due to misconception of the reality, then we develop all other afflictive emotions. So ignorance, as I said earlier, is perceiving and seeing things as having independent existence. This is ignorance because in reality, there is nothing that has inherent or independent existence. But by developing this misconception, thinking that things have independent, inherent existence, other afflictive emotions arise because, for example, say you like your friend very much, and you are also seeing that your friend, because you like your friend, because you see your friend as having inherent independent existence. Therefore, you will see your friend as 100% good, objectively good, independently good. Therefore, your friend may have lots of faults and wrong habits, but still you will not be able to see that because you are seeing your friend as being 100% good, independently good, objectively good. And the problem with that is because you are seeing your friend as 100% good, therefore you will also have excessive attachment, excessive obsession. Wow, so good. I must have it. Without this one, I cannot live. Kind of attitude. You can see how seeing things as having inherent existence fuels the afflictive emotions. Then on the other hand, let us say you have this enemy which you do not like. You will see that enemy and 100% negative, independently negative. There's nothing good in this person. Impossible to have negotiation with this person. Impossible to have dialogue with this person.
Sounds familiar here.
Yeah,
Area.
exactly. Not only in this bigger area, but also how we deal with our other people. When you had some argument and some fighting with somebody, then from that time onwards, you will start saying all the bad things about this person. I don't think he's a good person. Then you come up with many seemingly good reasons, but not necessarily good reasons. You see? This is our tendency, habitual tendency. When you like somebody, then you start showering praise upon this person. Oh, he looks so good. He's then suddenly one day when you see something wrong, when there is a disharmony with that person, then you will immediately start again saying bad things with that person. So therefore, ignorance is the root cause of arisal of all the afflictive emotions, and therefore the root cause of suffering. So ignorance, as I explained earlier, is seeing things as having inherent independent existence, but it also means not knowing the nature of the self, not knowing the nature of what belongs to oneself, not knowing the reality of what is outside of you, not knowing what the reality of what is inside of you, and not being able to distinguish between what is outside of you and what is inside of you. So it is in this way that ignorance is the root cause of all other contaminated emotions. And in the case of all sentient beings, it is due to ignorance as the cause and as the factor that you get the psychophysical aggregate, you get the senses, you get the constituents and elements. You have all kind of wrong conceptions, wrong thoughts, wrong views, and in this way you end up cultivating all other negative emotions. So therefore, the Buddha says, therefore, in many of my sutras, I have clearly said that ignorance is the cause for attachment, cause for hatred, and so forth. Hatred. Now, what are the causes for these afflictive emotions? There are three main causes. One, afflictive emotions continue to arise because you have not stopped the continuity of these afflictive emotions. You have not stopped the arisal of these afflictive emotions, so therefore they continue to come. Second, they continue to come because you have not stopped the causes and conditions of these afflictive emotions. Third, these afflictive emotions continue to come because you are regularly mentally engaging and thinking about these afflictive emotions. For example, if you continue to think about an object of attachment, attachment will arise. If you continue to think about an object of hatred, hatred will arise. So therefore, what should you do? The afflictive emotions also arise because you do not restrain your senses. You do not restrain your senses. You are not restraining your senses. Now I'll tell you a very big, interesting story. The Buddha's Lalit Vistara Sutra. Lalit Vistara Sutra. The Buddha says, with regard to the child sentient beings, with regard to their delighting, with regard to the children, which means us, with regard to the children's delight in the samsara, the delight they have towards the samsara is just like the delight the pigs have towards impure, filthy substances. You see the pigs, animal pigs, always scavenging whatever is dirty and they get attached to it, delight in it. We are like that. Sentient beings are sunk in the samsara, just like an elephant is sunk in a quagmire of mud. Sentient beings have strong attachment to the samsara, just like dogs have strong attachment to leftover bones or skeletons, where there's not much meat to eat, but still be sniffing and making repeated rounds about it. Sentient beings are imprisoned in the samsara just as a person is imprisoned in the prison. Sentient beings are fallen in the samsara just as a butterfly falls and dies in the butter lamp. Sentient beings are ensnared, just as a fish is ensnared by the fish hook. Sentient beings are revolving endlessly in the samsara, just like the pot that moves around, the mud pot that moves around when it is prepared by the potter. So here I will give you that story, which is also, I think, found in that sutra also. The causes for arisal of all these afflictive emotions is primarily attachment, desire, grasping, craving, and so forth. So basically desire. Now, if we take this example with our own life, we have very strong desire. When this desire gets intensified, then we call it craving, then we call it grasping. They are desire, but in the intensified state. So we all have very strong desire towards the five sensual objects. So I normally explain this by giving the example of the visit to a mall. I do think that the malls are constructed, the big malls, shopping malls, they are constructed to fulfill our desire towards the five sensual objects. In other words, seeing the weaknesses of our desire towards the five sensual objects, the malls are constructed. Maybe a little bit exaggeration, but looks very similar. Like if when you visit the mall, the first, let us say, the first floor is fragrance, ointments for your body. Desire towards the sensual object of the smell, nose. We are all very attracted to smell fragrant things. So realizing that the one whole floor is of all kind of fragrances prepared from this flower, that flower. I'm not exaggerating. You go to the mall, it is there. Move to the second floor. Let us say television, where you're able to see all the beautiful forms in the television, you get very attracted to the forms. You want to see different forms, at least through the television. Again, you spend a lot of money there. Go to the next floor. Restaurants. Tongue. Restaurant, Japanese restaurant, Chinese restaurant, American restaurant, Israeli restaurant, whatever, so many restaurants, because they know you are after tasting something. Go to the next floor. Touch. of all kinds. Go to the next floor. Sound, CDs, DVDs. Am I exaggerating?
No.
More or less like that. But this idea of this relating to the five sensual objects to the mall, I think is purely my invention, my finding. So somebody should give me a big prize for this finding. Because now you are agreeing that this seems to be true. Because the business people do business seeing what we are going to buy, what is our need. Need means our weakness. So the malls came up. And because of your desire towards fulfilling this, your senses, towards the sensual objects, all your hard-earned money goes there to fulfill the dictates of your sensual objects. I'm talking about fulfilling the sensual objects. I'm not talking about the fulfillment of the mind. Mind is hardly there. Even if the mind is there, it has become a slave to the dictates of the senses. It should be the other way around. The mind should be able to control the senses, but here the senses are controlling the mind. So the mind helplessly goes after. So that's why restraining, as we use the word, restraining the senses. That means this outlet, this eye, the mouth, ear, these are openings where the monkey mind can go out. So when you don't restrain the senses, then the mind goes out through these outlets, through these windows and doors, and then get attitude towards the sensual objects. Then you are in a big problem, you see. So therefore, it's important to restrain the senses, not seeing everything, not listening or hearing everything, not tasting everything, not touching everything. Clear example given that what will be the negative consequences, destructive consequences of unchecked engagement into the sensual objects is, he gives the example in the sutra. For example, in the case of your desire and greed towards the sensual object of form. The text gives the example of the butterfly. The butterfly is very obsessed with the butter lamp, seeing it as a palace or whatever it is seeing. So he goes there and he gets burned alive in that hot butter. You can see when you have that excessive attachment to one of the five sensual objects, just the form, it could take your life. It could cost your life. Then sound. It is said that the hunters, when they want to hunt and kill some wild animal like deer, then they would play some very nice musical instruments. Having led a trap somewhere, they would play these very nice musical instruments. And then these wild animals, they come with their ears raised, not knowing there is a trap lying there. And then they get trapped and caught and killed. Again, you can see it takes their life. Smell. Look at the house flies or many other kinds of insects and flies. They get so attracted to the smell, even though it is a bad smell, but they think it's a good smell. So they go there and their feet get stuck in, and they die. Test or testing fish. The fish having that great desire to test that small meat that is there on the hook of the fisherman. He comes up to test it and is caught and thrown out of the water and dies. Touch. It is said that the elephant, if you massage gently, touch his body gently, he will enjoy that so much, he will lie down. He will lie down. And then as soon as he lies down, then he is hooked and chained to be enslaved by human beings. So when it's enslaved to any of these sensual objects, either you would lose your life or you would become a slave for the rest of your life. Slave, of course. People work like a donkey in different ways, in different forms, almost like a slave, because of their desire towards obtaining those sensual objects. So now, I don't think you need any further explanation how destructive these desires, attachment, craving, grasping are. Even with attachment to one object, if you could get into such a problem, then now look at the human beings, excessively attached to all the five sensual objects. So there is another reason, another reason why we should be particularly careful. If you want to maintain some kind of independence, freedom, then there is moderation, so that you don't become slave or don't get killed. For example, the mafias. Look at the life of the mafias, drug dealers. Many of these people who want to earn money quickly, take the shortcut, many of them get killed. And many others, because of too much obsession to this thing, that thing, for that obsession, they need money, and therefore there's no other way but to work like a donkey in different ways. So they become more or less a slave, having no choice, no freedom. And based on my own personal experience, I'll tell you, this is personal experience. Not necessarily a great religious practice, but small practice that I do, which I'm sure you can do, of course, easily do, and which is very important. There will be many occasions when people will ask you to do certain with the temptation of giving such and such amount of salary. Okay, if it is a good opportunity, it's something that you can do, not a big deal. Of course, you have to earn your livelihood, you do it. But there will be occasions when, even though there is a huge offer of money, but you don't think you can do it, or there will be a big problem in doing that. So on such occasions, not to run after money and say, no, sorry, I can't do. We'll leave you in peace, not just going after the money. So this, my personal experiences, what I'm saying is, I don't hardly do anything for money, but the little bit of salary that I get in the library is also because I'm doing job, they give it. I did not just go for money. So I don't have much experience in it. But because as I'm a translator, very often people come to me, Geshe, can you please do this translation? Number one, I normally say I'm very busy, I can't do, because even if it is not with money, but if you say you will do it, you're going to get a big problem if you're not going to do it, you know. So therefore, one of my principle is that if it is something that you cannot do, say no gently, finish the matter. You will be happier and you'll really be happy, very free. But if you say out of courtesy and stupidity, you say, I don't think I can do it, but I will try. You know? Now you're already in the trap. Even if it's not question of money, still you said you will do it. The next, you see, this is the strange thing with human beings. So that other person who had requested you to do this, even when there is no money, but if you don't make much progress, if you don't do it much, that person gets angry. You said you will do it. Now see, I'm wasting my time. Otherwise I could have done it. The blame will be on you. This is human tendencies. So why should you suffer unnecessarily? So don't make big promises. Even if you do it, just don't make big promises. You should tell clearly that if you want me, try. But I am not promising that will be able to do within this specific period and so forth. Say it clearly. Your life will be easier. Because the problem I had with people is that people normally hear what they want to hear. They don't hear what you say. They don't hear what you say. They hear what they want to hear. For example, just few days back, it happened while I'm here, there was somebody who wants to publish a book that we are preparing for free distribution on a good cause. But still, we're just preparing that book. It is not done. So he finally decided to publish this book, and then calls me saying, "Can you please send the manuscript? We want to publish it." I said, "It's not ready. We have to work." Then he says, "You said it is ready." I never said it is ready, but he is so dying to publish this book. He hears what he wants to hear, that the book is ready, when nobody said the book is ready. See, that's the problem. I'm sure you will have so many examples like that. So normally people hear what they want to hear, not what you say. So under such situations, when there is a likelihood of creating confusions, you need to say it 2-3 times. Okay, did you hear clearly? Did you hear clearly? I'm not saying this, I'm saying this. Okay. And if there's a need to write down. Then your life will be easier, and it will also not create confusion in the mind of other people. So whenever people ask me, my story, whenever people ask me to translate something with this particular deadline, they'll say, "I'll give you this much money, but you need to complete this under this deadline." I said, "No, don't take away this word deadline. I don't like this word also. Because if I try to follow the deadline, before the deadline, I will be dead." Yeah, I mean, then just for the money, I have to try to fulfill the deadline. If there's no offer of money, I have my personal choice. I will try to fulfill the deadline. But I will never do it if somebody is asking me to fulfill the deadline with the temptation of the money. Few times I rejected that, and I really rejoiced my decision. I rejoiced my decision. So this is nothing, unique with me, but just using my common sense. I'm telling you that I did this and I fared well. There was another occasion when somebody was asking me to give me a lot of money if you start this project. He's going to give me a lot of money. But I said, "I can't. You're going to give me a lot of money. Thank you very much. But I'm not able to do that." So I stopped doing that. So that way you can save a lot of your spending of unnecessary energy, and also it will give you a lot of freedom. It will make you happier, give you a lot of freedom. So that, I think, is very, very important. Very, very important. If you want to have a life where there's real freedom, don't get too obsessed with offer of money and name and fame and so forth. Still, there are 5 minutes. Don't worry, there are 5 minutes. So that's one thing. At least we can start doing it. Offer of name, offer of fame, offer of money. At one point, somebody offered me to become a minister. Very tempting. You see, for ordinary people, it's very tempting. I said, "No, I'm not in that line. Thank you very much." And there are others who say, "Oh, you made such an opportunity. You're going to become a big person." So what do you mean by big person? More obsession, more problem, you see. So I later on, I rejoiced my decision, you see. You're free. You have to be free. If you want to achieve great things, first you should be free. Otherwise, how you are going to do things that you want to do? When you become almost like a slave to the, dictates of other people, do this, do that, yes sir, yes sir. So these things, I'm just giving you a hint, but all you need to do is just recall many of your personal experiences. What went well, what did not went well, why was the reason, just from that you learn. And that will be in accordance with the Dharma. Because you are doing things based on reason, based on logic, based on law of nature. So in this way you can become much more free.
You had become the head of the library, which
Yeah.
is also very heavy on.
Yeah, but still that was my line. Because it has to do with preservation of religion, preservation of Tibetan culture, and then also like translation of the books, publication of books. That is an area where I am quite a little bit familiar, where I can make some contribution. Then also in that case, it was also the suggestion of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you see. So sometimes, you
To him, you don't say no.
huh?
To him, you don't say no.
What?
To His Holiness.
To His Holiness, I will try my best to
Say no.
say to not to say no. But again, you have to judge your capacity, If it is something that you cannot do, then even there you have to say, I can't do it. I'm extremely sorry. You see. You have to judge whether you can do it or not. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So common sense. Buddhism is common sense. And it's really not so much about talking, just talking, but observing and doing. And you already know so much. I'm 100% sure. Probably, all of us know many things. That this should be the way. This should not be the way. We know many of these things, but are we able to do that? So that's the problem. You see, that's the problem. It's just like talking about, different delicious dishes. The reading book is almost like reading the menu. I give you the menu, and then we talk about it. Chicken tandoori, so good. It's prepared in this. Then also, in Tibet there is a thing called momo, meat dumpling and so many things. It's really delicious. It is prepared in this way. We talk about it. Talk about all kind of delicious food. But until we eat, we'll not be able to enjoy the real taste. So likewise, unless we do our bit, practice our bit, we'll not be able to enjoy the taste of the teaching. Marve. Tu Geshe.